Hi everyone, it's me. So today I'm going to share with you 9 tips that I use when renting in England. Now before we get started, anytime I do a video on renting in England or the rent prices in England, I always get people in the comments saying something along the lines of, renting is dead money, you should just buy a house. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, so I don't know if you realize, but telling people you should just buy a house is not very helpful. Now these 9 tips I have specifically learned the hard way, and there's a little bit of a backstory with this video, so please gather around. Okay. For those of you who watch my videos somewhat frequently, thank you so much. You probably know that I have recently moved into this flat. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. Really wonderful place. Fingers crossed it stays that way. However, I am kind of in the middle of a legal dispute with another letting agency and another landlord. And let me tell you, it's awful. So, because it may be going to court, I don't want to say anything too specific, but to be completely honest with you, when all of this is done, when the dust has settled, I am absolutely going to do a video on it. It's going to be so spicy. Normally, as a Canadian, I don't like confrontation. I hate it. But because this whole situation has been so awful, you guys, so genuinely awful, shocking, that I really want to do a video on it. I want to tell you guys everything, all right? I'm going to tell you everything, but I can't do it just yet because we may be going to court. So, do know that that video is coming in the future. And all of these tips that I'm going to share with you, I have learned because of all of that awful, awful situation. So I try to look at everything as a learning experience, and it certainly has been. And I really hope none of you go through it. And while these tips I'm going to share with you are from my experiences being a Canadian living in England, I do think they're applicable to pretty much any country. So now that we've had that big old beginning, I'm so sorry. Most people have probably clicked away from this video, but without further ado, let's go. Okay, number 1. Now, you found a property here in England or the UK that you want. You've put your name forward, you've done the relevant background checks, they have given you a tenancy agreement. And I know this is stupid, and I know it's pretty obvious, but you need to read that thing a couple of times. Unfortunately, with tenancy agreements, they are so long and they can be very confusing. And particularly as a foreigner, you may not have seen an English tenancy agreement before. It may be quite different from what you're used to in your home country. So my hot tip, I know it's kind of obvious, but it is pretty important, is to A, read it yourself as best you can, as thoroughly as you can, but also get somebody else to read it. Get a friend, get a partner or a coworker, or even if you're really close with your boss, maybe ask if your boss would read it for you, or a family member, even in your home country, if they could read it for you as well. Just get extra eyes on that tenancy agreement because they may spot something that you miss. Now, my personal experience with this one is I was really excited about the property. I read it as best I could, but there was something that I missed, and it came back to bite me in the butt. So, in the tenancy agreement, it will tell you how many months you as a tenant have to give if you want to leave that property. The box standard, the government guidance, is 1 month for tenants to give. You have to give 1 month as a tenant. That's the standard. But mine didn't say that. So in actuality, it said 2 months, which apparently is not normal. And even if I caught that when I read it the first time, I wouldn't have known that that is not necessarily normal. It does not help the tenant at all. It is strictly to help the landlord. And if your tenancy agreement does have the 2-month clause, it pretty much means that you're gonna have quite a bit of overlap moving from one property to the other when you have to give 2 whole months notice. So read that tenancy agreement so carefully. Make sure you check the clause about how much notice you need to give. If for whatever reason it doesn't say 1 month, it says something more, feel confident in questioning that. Go back to the letting agency, say, hey, why is this there? I really want to give 1 month. They may roll over and let you do it. They may cause a fuss. You won't know until you ask. But unfortunately for me, didn't even notice it. Didn't even notice. Number 2 on our list of 9 things you should be doing as a renter is taking a really depth inventory when you move in. Now, I've had it with either end of the spectrum for sort of check-in experiences. So on one hand, I've had a check-in where they basically like give you the keys. They've done their photos of the property and they just kind of say, enjoy, have fun, bye. On the other hand, I've had it where it's very formal. You check in with your passports. They want to see photo ID. You walk around with the letting agent in the property to talk about any issues. There's a very in-depth checklist that they write out all the problems and you can add the problems, and they go around and take all the photos of the property, and it's very, very formal and very in-depth. So no matter what type of check-in experience you have, it is so important, my guys, it is so important to take photos. Even if the letting agency has taken photos themselves, you take your own photos. Basically, the name of the game is protecting yourself. Some of these points, as we can carry on, might feel like they're a bit paranoid, that they're a bit over the top. And to be honest, I don't think they are, because when you get to a crappy situation, you need to be able to protect yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. So no matter what, take your own photos, go wild, and note down any issues you have while you're moving into the property, any damage, any mold, any broken things, anything, write it all down. The letting agency will also do their own photos, so you can ask to have copies of those as well, but it definitely helps to have your own photos too. Hi, it's me, Alanna. I'm not sure I've said my name in this video yet, but it's Alanna. Hi. I would be so grateful if you could subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, maybe even leave a comment. Oh my God, can you imagine? That would be really nice. I'm having a hard time, all right? If you could do that, just know that I appreciate it. If you don't want to do that, then that's fine. You gotta do you, pal. You gotta do what's right for you. Anyway, back to this video. Number 3, make a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets, so you shouldn't be surprised. Whatever program you like to use, whether that's Excel, whether that's notes, whether it's like a Word document, whether you want to do it on pen and paper, I would not recommend them, but everybody's got their own choices to make. Whatever program you want to use, you need something to organize everything that happens in your property. Now, my partner and I here use a program called Notion. I actually use Notion for literally everything, for organizing YouTube, for organizing my life, calendar, appointments, everything. If you guys want a video on Notion, let me know. I absolutely love it. This is not sponsored, but if anybody at Notion sees this, you make a great product. Email me. Let's talk. Whatever program you use, the main goal is you want to like organize all your information in one place. So say your toilet explodes. Yes, it does happen. So we've organized ours into a chart. So we will have the date the toilet exploded, then details. When did you call the letting agency? Who did you speak to? What did you tell them? How long did it take to get fixed? Did you follow up because the plumber never showed up? Any details you can is just organized all in one space. But the most important things are dates, times, what happened, who knew at what point, all that kind of stuff. The nice thing too with Notion is you can add in pictures. So anytime there's an issue, take pictures. Oh my God, take pictures. And also with Notion, you could upload screenshots. So when you email the landlord or you email the letting agency, you can take a screenshot of that email and you can put it all in one spot. So, God forbid, anything happened around that particular issue that maybe you didn't agree with, you could go back to your chart, your spreadsheet, whatever it is, and you can say, actually, no, I contacted you on this date at this time. We spoke about this issue. Here's the photos. Here's the emails. Goodbye. I have added a blank copy of the Notion chart that my partner and I use down in the description. So if you want to check that out, even if you don't end up using Notion, you can at least kind of get an idea of how we organize that information. Again, the name of the game is protecting yourself. You need to have evidence, you need to have photos, and having a centralized spreadsheet or a chart where all that information goes just makes it super helpful. Number 4, inspection reports. Yay! Every few months, the letting agency will want to do an inspection of the property. Typically, it's every 6 months. The pandemic has kind of changed that a little bit, but let's say every 6 months, they'll contact you directly to set up a date and a time, so they should not come up just unannounced, but they will enter the property and do an inspection, maybe even talk to you about issues or whatever. The thing though, the thing that we have learned is ask for that report, because our letting agency would not give us the inspection report unless we repeatedly asked for it. So once they do that inspection, follow up with an email, say, hey, I'd really like a copy of that inspection report, please, for my files. Make it sound a little bit professional if you want. And they should supply that to you, and then you can add that information into your spreadsheet, into your chart, and have it all together. Number 5 on what all renters in England should do: email. Email, 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 email. Hot tip from one person to another: make sure all correspondence is done in email. The best thing with email, it's all time-stamped. The dates are there. You can take screenshots of emails. You can save it. It is wonderful evidence to show that you raised issues, you tried to get things fixed, you were whatever it is. It's evidence. And you gotta protect yourself with evidence. Now, of course, there are situations where you're gonna need to call the letting agency, like your toilet exploded, because it does happen. So say you call the letting agency and you're like, hey, my toilet just exploded. It's the only toilet in this flat. I need help urgently. It is an emergency. My toilet just exploded. Naturally, that's gonna need to be a phone call because it's very time sensitive. But what I would 100% recommend is following that up with an email. So maybe later that day or the next day, whatever, you email the letting agency and you say something like, as per our phone call this morning, our only toilet exploded. There is extensive water damage. You had, or rather, I spoke to Peter and he advised that the plumber would be here by 3 p.m. Just wanted to update you, it's now 5 p.m. and no plumber has arrived. Or better case scenario, as per our phone call this morning, blah, blah, blah. The plumber arrived, fixed the toilet, everything is great, thank you so much. Send. Then you have a copy of that correspondence, you have a copy of what happened, and in that email, make sure to include dates, times, who you spoke to, what happened, how long did it take for the thing to be repaired, or maybe it hasn't been repaired, but get all of it in writing because it will very much help you should you ever need that in the future. Cryptic, I know. Now, number 6 is go through the letting agency. Now, I've spoken to a couple people and not all people agree, which is totally fine, but this is my YouTube channel, so shh in the comments. In my experience, I've had it both ways. I've had it where the landlord is very much involved, contacts you directly. There's a lot of direct communication. Maybe they come by the flat a little bit too much. The landlord is very involved and they want you to contact them directly and kind of leave the letting agency out of it. On the other hand, I've had it where I don't even know the landlord. I know their name, but I've never met them. I don't talk to them. I talk directly with the letting agency. And to be honest, I really greatly prefer that. It really depends on your own situation and your own relationships and whatever, but to be honest, I would much rather have all communication done through the letting agency and only contact the landlord if absolutely necessary, or to arrange a repair or something. But that's like last chance. I don't want to do that unless I have no other option. Number 7, for things that all people renting in England should do, be a little bit critical. Now, cryptic. I was a little bit naive to think that landlords and letting agencies have rules they have to abide by, rules that they are aware of, and that they would, for the most part, play nice, which has not necessarily been the case. So I think it helps to be a little bit critical, a little bit wary, and just know that just because there are regulations and there's rules and there's standards and all that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to play by the book. And I do think there is an element of, well, as a tenant, you probably don't know the law. You don't know tenant rights. You don't know much about tenancy agreements. You don't know regulations and acts about housing and all sorts of stuff. So you are at a huge disadvantage because you don't know what you don't know. And I do think there is an element in letting agencies that they sort of assume you just don't know what's right. And I think some of them push the envelope a bit because they kind of assume that you aren't going to call them on it because you don't know. Also, in terms of being a little bit critical, I have found that even if the landlord is very buddy-buddy with you, you know, they're very friendly, they want to be friends with you, they invite you out to the pub, whatever, maybe they are very nice, I really don't know. But I do know that when money is involved, people change. That's a bit cynical, but I think that is pretty true. So I don't think that I am paranoid that all letting agencies and all landlords are out to get me, but I think it does help to be a little bit critical and to take the extra steps to protect myself with photos, with emails, collate all that evidence together should I ever need it. Because if something were to happen, you really need that evidence. So it's kind of like best case scenario, you spend some time organizing all this information and you don't need it. You have a wonderful time, wonderful landlord, wonderful letting agency. You have a great life in that property. Worst case scenario, something goes wrong, but at least you have that evidence. Oh, I hope this video is not too long. I just realized I've got chocolate milk. You probably could have seen that earlier. Sorry if that was annoying. I got chocolate milk in between takes. I'm a professional. Cheers. Okay, number 9 I have is get it clean, dummy. Now, at the end of your tenancy in that property, you need to obviously clean it. Now, I'm a big believer in budgeting some extra money to pay for a professional end of tenancy cleaning. Now, legally, you don't have to pay a professional to do it. You can clean the property yourself, but I find that I would rather budget for someone else to do it. At our last property, we had cleaners come in. I think it was around £200, which is like a hefty amount of money. But if you think my partner and I were paying for it, we split it half. So £100, they came in 3 hours. They used all their own cleaning equipment, all their own supplies, their own vacuum, everything. So we didn't have to make sure we left those things out. We could pack everything up. They went in, they cleaned it, they knew exactly what they were doing. And it's done. Now, there are some professional cleaning companies that offer end of tenancy cleaning as a service, and some of them even have a guarantee that If they clean the property, the landlord comes in and says, this isn't good enough, or you forgot to do that, or this was supposed to be done, they have a guarantee that they will come back and clean for free. So that is super helpful if you can get a company that will do that. Otherwise, whether you are cleaning it yourself or you're getting a professional to do it, the tenancy agreement should have some type of checklist of what needs to be cleaned. Some of them you wouldn't even think of, but it's really helpful to find that when you're cleaning, follow it to a T, and fingers crossed you'll be okay. One of the things that I missed on our end of tenancy cleaning checklist, cleaning the outside of all the windows. Missed that one, that's my bad, sorry. And finally, number 9, get help if you need it. If you get yourself into a bit of a pickle, don't be afraid to ask for help professionally, whether that's calling a solicitor. They may even give you advice before actually taking on the case. So if you just have a general question, they might be able to answer that for you without actually charging to take on your case. You could also check out Facebook groups or forums. Although that's not necessarily professional help, you may find people who have been in a similar situation and you can kind of see what they ended up doing. Another really great resource is Citizens Advice. You can find tons of resources and information on their website. You can also speak to somebody about your particular situation and ask questions. Another one that I found pretty helpful was Shelter England, had tons of resources and tons of information as well. I think at the base of all of this, what is really scary is, as a tenant, you don't know what you don't know. And I really don't know. So when you find yourself in a situation that I have found myself in, I don't know. I don't know tenant rights. I don't know how tenancy agreements could be broken. I don't know the Housing Act of 2018, although I do now. So there's just a lot of information, and it can be very intimidating and very overwhelming when you are going up against somebody who knows a lot more than you do. And if you do find yourself in that situation, do not be afraid to ask for help. Search the internet, Citizens Advice, Shelter, anybody who can help you, because it is not okay. I think too, because I hate confrontation, the easiest thing is just to be like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. And that's not okay. That's not cool. We should not be put in those types of situations unjustly. Anyway, this is not going to turn into a rant because that video is coming later. So I hope this video is helpful in any way. I don't mean to freak people out. I've had some wonderful letting agents and some wonderful landlords, but when it's not good, it is quite scary. So I have found that these 9 tips I'm going to be using for the rest of my renting life. If you have any advice or tips that you think are really helpful for renters in England specifically, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. I probably could use them, and I hope people watching this video could also benefit from them too. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!